Good evening, everyone. I wish to respectfully recognize the Coast Salish Nations upon whose traditional territory we're meeting this evening with gratitude. The first item tonight is the public hearing, and I want to call the public hearing to order for Wednesday, July the 5th, 2017. I'm now going to ask the corporate officer, Mrs. Kaler, to introduce the public hearing process and the first item on the agenda. Mrs. Kaler, if you would, please.
I have a conflict.
Thank you. You'll be reclusing yourself. Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Kaler, we'll let Councillor Burden leave the room. And by the way, for members of the audience, Councillors Patterson and Councillor Salter won't be in this evening. Okay. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We do. Mrs. Kaler, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Local Government Act requires that a public hearing be held before Council adopts an amendment to the zoning bylaw. Copies of the Director of Community Planning's reports and related information respecting the subject amendment bylaw have been available for public examination at the offices of the Planning Department, in Parksville's Civic and Technology Centre, and on the City's website. At this public hearing, all persons present who deem their interest in property affected by the proposed bylaw shall be afforded an opportunity to be heard on matters contained within the bylaw. Anyone wishing to be heard on the specific bylaw amendment must come to the microphone at the appropriate time, clearly stating their name and civic address. Council members request that speakers restrict discussion to the application on hand, which is the proposed use of the land. Members of Council may ask questions of persons after they have made their presentation. However, the main function of Council members this evening is to listen to the presentations and not engage in debate. Whether you are for or against the particular bylaw this evening, Council would request that you not display any outbursts as a courtesy to all present this evening. No presentations or submissions will be received by Council on any application after the motion for termination of the public hearing has been adopted. When a public hearing item has been terminated, Council requests those persons wishing to leave the Council chambers do so in a quiet and orderly manner in order that Council may continue with its business. This evening, the public hearing is for Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2016, number 2000.104. In general terms, the purpose of the proposed amendment is to change the zoning from single-family residential RS1 to medium-density residential RS2 in order to facilitate a townhome development on the properties listed at 451, 461, and 465 Hearst Avenue West. As of 4 p.m. on July 5th, 2017, 7 pieces of written correspondence have been received in response to the application. Russell Sharrock of 244 Cedar Street, Parksville, BC, advised he is against the application due to concerns regarding increased traffic and crime. Amy Rempel of 134 Finholme Street South, Parksville, advised she is against the rezoning. Mary Ann Beveridge of 145 Molliette Street, Parksville, advised she is against the rezoning due to concerns about traffic and a wish to keep the area as single-family residential units. Miriam Schell and Harry Sumner of 440 Hearst Avenue West, Parksville, expressed concerns and had questions about the rezoning, including the size of the proposed development, parking, noise, construction, traffic, property values, and the types of units for a proposed development, and questions regarding why the application is being considered when empty properties closer to the downtown remain undeveloped. Arliss McNeil of 227 James Street advised she is against the proposed rezoning due to concerns about traffic increases, loss of enjoyment during construction, loss of enjoyment including views after construction with the future development. Darrell Kane of 618 Hearst Avenue advised he is opposed to the rezoning because he feels it will devalue the neighborhood and create more traffic. And finally, Caroline Dumansky of 256 McKinnon Street advised she is opposed to the rezoning because she believes the Hearst area should remain single-family until vacant downtown core properties are developed.
Thank you, Ms. Kaler. So first of all, I'd like to invite anyone who would like to speak to come forward to the microphone and give their name and civic address for the record. This will be the first call, so you can come up to the microphone here, turn it on, and tell us what you have to say. And by the way, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. On a beautiful night like tonight, it's very, very pleasing to see people getting involved. Thank you. Good evening. Do you want to turn the microphone on? Oh, Deidre will do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Mary Nielsen. I live at 483 Hearst Avenue West. I have a whole number of concerns regarding this issue. It's not just the fact that they want to rezone, but there are a whole lot of concerns regarding this. First of all, we are an area of nicely kept single-family homes. If this rezoning passes, other applications will probably follow. Is this what we want? Loss of enjoyment of our properties during long-term construction, noise, and disruption, higher density, more traffic on Hearst already feeling pressure, and when other areas close to the city core remain undeveloped. There's no community benefit to us. This is an issue that apparently was raised in the application. What is the community benefit to us to rezone this property? The rezoning is only going to benefit the developer and owners to make money, and for the city to collect fees and taxes. I'd also like to bring to your attention a number of comments and statements that were made in the application itself. This is the material that we received from the city, and it includes the drawings, and it includes all of the information required in the application. On page 5 of the application, it states 20 units, but no commitment given. On page 25, they ask about the density. It's not proposed at this time. Page 28, density. Question asked, no commitment. Page 27, proposed drawing is only that. Yes, it looks very nice on paper. It looked very nice at the meeting. But this should be elsewhere. It should not be in an area that is single family when there are lots of properties undeveloped in the city core. The traffic study of 08 does not apply. At that time, there was a review of the traffic from 06. However, that was predicated on different parameters. One was the development of Bank Street. So there is I can't remember the term. It's not a dedicated street at the back. And so because that is not proposed on the application, that area of the traffic would not be pertinent. So a new traffic study is definitely needed. I talked to people on Cedar Street and elsewhere, but especially on Cedar. There is a very strong feeling among everybody that I spoke to of the issue of increased traffic. One of the lots that is supposed to be redeveloped would have an egress onto Cedar. or it would be at least right across from Cedar. Thus, people wanting to go to 19 Highway would go straight up Cedar rather than going down to the stop sign at Molliet and proceeding up that way. There are a number of people who enjoy walking their dogs. There are a number of families with small children that express great concern about this possible increase. Now, at the in the application, you got some submissions from the people who live in Windsor Court. This is not go against anything that they said in the way of opinions. This is just our feeling regarding it. And that is that the approval that many of them gave at that time, although there were only 10 of us who submitted information, Windsor Court was, the approval by Windsor Court was predicated on the architectural rendering. They saw it, they liked it. However, there is no guarantee that this will occur. So these people were going on the assumption that this would be inevitable and that this is the best that they could expect. Now, I have one more concern, and that was that the applicant stated that this would be an asset to the city, as it would take away pressure on undeveloped lots in the city core. I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Do I have anyone else? Good evening. For you, please give us your name and address.
I'm Dr. Catherine Gamel, and I reside at 197 Cedar Street. I have lived there for almost 15 years, and I have had concerns about this planning and project for many, many years. When the people who bought this property from North Vancouver decided to put up this development, it didn't feel like it was the right location for in an intelligent way. And so I went around, myself and actually Mary, who was really great. And Mary, I don't know, I shouldn't be saying this, but she does have some disability, and she has gone door to door with a disabled condition, soliciting people's opinions. So Mary and I, a few years ago, went door to door to 300 people in this area. And I'm a busy doctor, so I did this all in my part-time. We got 300 signatures not wanting any development on the property. It wasn't just minor, few family homes, things like that. They didn't want any development. So the opinion's very strong. And I only got short notice of this meeting last week, so Mary and I started on Friday night after a very long week, and I went door to door as many as I could, and we went to 90 homes. And the consensus pretty well is some people are neutral on it, but I would say over 80 or 90% do not want this project to go through from the start. So I know that these developers can be very, how should I call it, evasive about how they're going to develop from the history before working with them and trying to get things through the office, Parksville City Hall. And they've changed the plans. They've come and swayed people. I feel that they've fudged the information. They haven't been very straightforward with us. And I really feel strongly that this is not the right location for our area. There's lots of other potential. And we do have a lot of families on Cedar. It's changed. It's been delightful. I love having kids on Cedar Avenue. We've got lots of growing families, still young things coming around. Lots of young families are moving in because a lot of old people are moving out now, and they can afford those homes in that area, and they want to build families. And someone else, actually, person I interviewed last night said, well, what if they put Quality Foods up in that corner, which there's talk. That's the one across from the new care center. They said, who's going to be streaming up there? Because we're far enough away to where people have to get in their car and go places, to the stores and whatever. Not a lot of people from our area walk to the city. So the increase of traffic is going to be huge. And I don't even know how Parks is going to deal with what we have to deal with in the future. We need traffic understanding because there's so much development generally going on in our area. What are we going to do with all these cars? I came down to try and do some business even through Hearst on Friday and my lunch hour off. And I know it was Canada weekend, but it was a Friday. I couldn't even get anywhere near downtown to even find a place, which I could have done maybe 5 years ago. So these are some of my important concerns, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else for the first time?
Good evening.
Good evening. Your name and address,
My
please.
name is Allison Pierce. I reside at 218 McKinnon Street. And if it wasn't for the good doctor leaving a note on my door, I don't think I would have known that this meeting was happening. Again, I echo a lot of the concerns that a number of the people have stated here in regard to the traffic, the noise. But I also have a concern that there is a natural stream that runs down and through and in behind that area, and it trickles out into that area where they want to develop it. So what would happen with that stream? Would they block it off and all that water gets backed up into where we live? As we have to have sump pumps now to take the water away, otherwise we get drowned out. That's a major concern I would have. What would happen to that natural stream that flows underground there? Thank you.
Anyone else for the first time? Okay, for a second time, I'm going to invite anyone who would like to speak to come forward for the second time. Good evening.
Hi.
Your name and address, please.
Anita Cook, and I live at 474 Hearst Avenue, right on the corner of Cedar. I'm on Hearst and corner of Cedar Street. I missed the beginning of this, so sorry. So I don't know if you guys said anything.
Don't worry about it. Just say what you want to say. Don't worry about repetition. It's okay.
Okay. So the only thing that from what I got out of the notice that just came around, because the last meeting they were trying to appease, like the very first time these people bought the properties, they wanted to put a 3-story massive apartment, ugly as sin, right at the end of, well, you know where it is, end of Cedar Street. So totally out of place in our neighborhood. And then we fought that, and then they came back with drawings. We said, build something. If you're going to build something, do it like Windsor Court, little patio homes, see how many you can get in there. And they came back with drawings, and every time it's basically to do that, there's not enough land there for them to make money and for it to actually look presentable and proper in our neighborhood, because we are single-family homes. My property is a duplex, but it's a 2-unit little duplex. It's still 2 individual little houses, but 1 level. So, and then I think we had one more meeting after that where they kind of changed. So basically right now, I guess I'm confused because it sounds like we're rezoning for something maybe possibly bigger than these 25 townhouse units that we sort of agreed on. And I think so if that is true, if we are like rezoning to something even more massive, that, like Mary says, there's no concrete drawings or anything, if this gets passed, they could go back to their original, put that 3-story but ugly building that kind of looks like that Grand Pacific there behind Wembley. That's their, and I'm totally against that. So yeah, it would be a horrible thing to put in a single-family neighborhood dwelling. There's the property on McMillan and down on Hearst, just behind the SOS. that that little house got demolished, and there's about it's a huge lot, and they were going to put that McMillan Villa 3-story building. Like, how come that's not going anywhere anymore? Like, that actually should be going up right there, because people would have the view of the ocean. They could walk to the stores. It'd be perfect. It doesn't fit in our neighborhood.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, once again, for a second time, I'm going to invite anyone who would like to speak to this issue. Would you please come forward? Your name and address, please.
My name's Fallon Loringer, and we live on 182 Cedar Street.
Take your time. Go.
I would have to say I'm not really opposed to it. We have a 4-year-old, 9-year-old. I'm speaking for people that have other kids on our street. It's just not. I have a hard time getting my 4-year-old off that street. And I stay at home with my kids, so I see the amount of traffic that go through, and it's a lot. The RCMP has had an issue with the 4-way with pulling people over because people are not stopping at the stop sign on the 4-way. So it's weird to see a development in single family when there's all these single family houses. It doesn't seem like it's the right fit. I also don't agree that they're trying to kick somebody out of a house and their son is sick with brain cancer. And for them to have to move because they want to develop is not right. So again, I would say it's not feasible for them a big developer to take over. And not only that, they said that they had a flood in that house, and there's been no one to go and fix it because they rent all 3 of them rent. So they're not dealing with the flood that they had because they want to tear those houses down. So they're not even really doing anything. The son can't come home because there's mold downstairs. From what I heard, he can't come home because his immune system's, suppressed and stuff. So, yeah. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay, for a second time, invite anyone who would like to speak. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
Iris. I'm at 439 Hearst Avenue. So I'm directly beside the development. I bought a 1.6-acre property. I do intend on keeping it single-family residential. I do think the development looks beautiful, but I'm going to have to side with the neighborhood on this one. I think the street is quite busy, and I agree with development. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I agree with the developments maybe starting closer to town and then moving out first. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for coming. Second time.
Hello, my name is Carmen Corbett. I reside at number 25, 454 Morrison Avenue. That's Windsor Court. I was one of the doesn't matter to me one way or the other people that was referred to. But listening to what people's concerns are, I can see that there should be more information gathered about what the people's intentions are, the size of buildings, the number of residents intended to live on those 3 lots, traffic concerns about the increase of traffic, especially with little kids playing on streets. I live right on that little creek. I don't really think that that waterway is going to be interfered with very much at all. As it is, we get a water situation that, from Windsor Court's perspective, we have to deal with. It's gone down over the years, the concern, because of the actions that the city has taken on behalf of rerouting water, surface water. So we do appreciate that. I can't really think of much more, but I would like to say that, you know, some more information really should be gathered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, for a third and final time, I'm going to invite anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to come forward. Third and final time. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
My name is Michael Kenny. I live at 186 Cedar Street. My concern with the development, this is the second or third go around with the same kind of thing to rezone that property on Hearst. And as far as I can see, we bought our house in that area 13, 14 years ago for residential, because of the residential area, because of the neighborhood, the kids, the family orientation. To have a big development like that go in, I think the zoning change to a medium density housing could set a precedent on that street for further development. Maybe it creeps up Cedar Street, maybe it creeps wherever. As far as my understanding with the city planning, I thought we were trying to get more density towards the downtown core to build businesses and things like that down there. And if we pull more and more people out into the outer areas of Parksville, we really don't benefit the city core whatsoever. All it does is make my street extremely busy for traffic, and I know that whatever interventions can be placed to slow that down, I don't think that will make any difference at all. I believe it will have a ton of traffic in there. The kids playing in the street is a danger and precedent. So that's my concerns with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So one more time for a third, not a one more time, but for a third and final time, invite anyone. Here we go. Thank you very much. Your name and address, please.
Diana Lockwood, 212 McKinnon Street. I just want to say this matter of drainage started quite a few years ago when they started the development at the top of Hearst with all the new houses and so forth. And we actually were ankle deep in water and had to put a sump pump in the garden to drain the water. I had plants die, so forth. And the city council actually came around, and I was allotted $15 for my damage, which was a bit of a joke, but this is an issue. Drainage is an issue. We are on low property. I believe years ago, I've been here for 30 years, and I believe that property on McKinnon previously was swamp and was filled in by developers with logs and then topsoil on the top, because we actually had to refill our property because the logs were coming through the rotten wood. So drainage is an issue. If I didn't have a sump pump, I would be even more. But more than that, a safety issue is McKinnon Street, just like the other lady said about Cedar being a shortcut to the highway. McKinnon Street, every weekend, every event that's happening downtown, our street is a raceway through to the highway. They come off of Hearst, down McKinnon, up Harnish, cut right onto the highway. And speeding. I've often thought if a policeman would like to set up a radar there, he might catch a few fish. But it is a population of small homes, young families. It's really, really nice. You know, do we want to change that? Do we want to make it city-like in the form of not caring of how many cars are on the street, and so the kids can't be? So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So once again, for a third and final time, I'll invite anyone who would like to come and speak. Give your name and address, please.
Thank
Your Worship. My name is Nigel Gray, and I am the agent on the application for the owners of the property on Hearst. I'm not going to speak to most of the issues that were raised today because I think they're addressed in our application, and you can review that at your leisure. I think on the issue of density, our firm was certainly really leery of taking this project based on the lack of success and what we felt was not the correct density from previous proposals. The reason all of our correspondence has always said 25, and that wasn't because we were trying to be sneaky, it's because that is what we're applying for. We did not want to set a density restriction because we didn't want to presuppose council's direction on that. Your OCP speaks to 20 to 40 units per hectare. We are at the very low end of that at 20. So we're more than happy to have a site-specific, lot-specific density restriction on that property, and that can be done through the same zoning bylaw. I just wanted to say that here so it's not new information later as we move through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for the third and final time, I see no one. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask from council, members of council, a motion to receive the correspondence received regarding zoning and development amendment bylaw 2016, number 2000.104. Do I have a motion? Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Oates. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Now I will need a motion from council to terminate the public hearing for zoning and development amendment bylaw 2016, number 2000.104. Do I have a motion? Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Powell. All those in favor? Thank you. That meeting is terminated. I want to advise the public once again that the public hearing is adjourned. Council cannot entertain further submissions or correspondence from the public on the proposed bylaw. So now, council, I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn the public hearing. Did we do that?
Yeah.
To terminate. Okay, Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned on the public hearing. There's termination and there's adjournment. Oh, everybody's going home. It's so lonesome. Okay. We'll let the room clear. Get out. Okay, good evening again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 5th regular meeting of Council. First item is the minutes of the Council meeting held June the 19th, 2017. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor Powell. Would somebody close that door, please? Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Nobody opposed. The next item I have is the approval of the agenda of the July 5th, 2017 Council meeting. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the agenda? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Powell. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. We have one presentation this evening, and that's from the Parksville Downtown Business Association. And we have a verbal presentation from the Executive Director, Pam Bottomley, whom I believe is going to introduce us to some youth ambassadors. So would you please come to the microphone? You want to turn that on? Turn the microphone on, please.
Your Worship, thank you so much for allowing us to come and introduce our team for 2017, the third year of our program. It's been an amazing hit with us and with the community. We have this year Willow Cabral and Ryan Smith. This is a Youth Ambassador dynasty. He is the brother to Austin Smith from our first year. So if you have any questions for these two amazing young people, please go ahead. you'll be seeing them out and about 6 hours a day for the next 10 weeks.
Well, welcome, ambassadors, and I know we'll be seeing you at the end of the summer with a full report on what your findings are. Members of council, any questions, comments for the ambassadors as they begin their summer work? Councillor Beale.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just curious as to when did you actually start? Have you been on the job, as it were, for a few days now? And if so, what have you had a chance to see or do thus far?
Well, we actually started on Monday, June 26th, so that was, I guess, last week. So this is our second week, and we've already kind of gotten the hang of what it means to be out downtown and visiting and meeting with tourists and locals, helping them find their way and kind of enhancing their downtown experience. I would say so far it's been really, really positive. We've had the chance to kind of interact and meet with people that we wouldn't normally be able to. It's nice to kind of help direct people to what they're looking for and kind of make their day with even just small talk and kind of hearing their opinions on certain things like the downtown experience or kind of figuring out what it is people are looking for and wanting. So
It's really cool, kind of talk to people, seeing people from Yukon or California. You don't really, when you're downtown, you don't really think that people come from all over to see. Like for Canada Day, there's people from all over, and it's really awesome to see that. So.
Councillor Rose?
Yeah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, and I want to wish you really a successful summer. If you get in tough with any of the people down around the beach with any issues with the city, just send them up to see the mayor. He's happy to see them. His door is always open, no problem whatsoever. So, but I'm really looking forward to seeing your report coming back at the end of the summer there, and I really like your enthusiasm. It's a good initiative, I think. I've really enjoyed the reports at the end of the summer, and so I think you're going to do very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get any feedback on Canada? Were you working on Canada Day?
We were, yeah.
You must have got some awesome feedback about Canada Day. You want to talk about that?
Sure, do.
Feedback, kind of like how it all went, or okay. I think most people, when we talked to them, they really liked all the kind of events, like the playground and kind of like the bull ride and everything. They really liked everything for the kids and all that.
Yeah, it was very family friendly, which really attracted a lot of people to that area. Like the beach on Canada Day was just completely packed, and everyone had a smile on their face. Everyone really liked the food trucks and the different services that were provided, and it just kind of created a nice kind of fun and playful ambiance. Yeah, I don't think we had any problems with anyone on Canada Day. Our main kind of questions, or not really concerns, were just regarding like, oh, who's playing music tonight, or when do the fireworks start?
Yeah.
So it was a very positive experience, and it went really well.
Councillor Burden had a busy day that day. He was in the park all day and all night. Yes, go ahead.
I think it would be interesting for council and staff and the public who are listening to find out a little bit about who you are as people.
By all means, yes, tell us about yourself.
Tell a little bit about your aspirations, your career goals, and
Okay, well, I'll start. As I was introduced, I'm Willow Cabral, and I'm going into grade 12 at Bolinas this upcoming year. I'm very, very academic, which is a little bit different for my friends because they love doing like drama and sports, but I'm the academic one that sticks to her books. I am completely enthralled with the sciences, so I've been thinking of going to UBC for a very long time now, hoping to do a double honors in biology and computer science, because technology is just a growing field that's constantly just there's a huge shortage, and there's a lot of room for creativity as well as kind of analytical approaches. So yeah, I'm very academic. I'm also involved in the Interact Club at school, which is kind of joined with the local Rotary. And we take on initiatives such as Haitian hurricane relief. We have several initiatives for like homelessness in Parksville, and my favorite one is Halloween for Homelessness, where we spend our Halloween going door to door before the trick-or-treaters come out, and we just collect goods and donate them to the local SOS and other places like that. We have other things like with the water park downtown. We've raised, I think, $1,600, and I'm actually the incoming vice president for the club next year, so I'm really excited about that. I've also been involved in other community initiatives, such as a local project surrounding mental wellness called Becoming and Belonging. We actually put on a presentation last June here at the community center. So being involved in that has really kind of built on my love for kind of research and science, because we were able to meet up with people all around the community, get their take on mental wellness and what needs to kind of improve in the area to, I guess, get people more open and decrease the stigma around mental health, and just kind of create a more open community where people can collaborate and I guess just help build the community in their own little way. So that was a really fun project to get on board with, and I'll let you talk, Brian.
All right, making me look bad here. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, kind of went for you. I'm Ryan. I'm very athletic. I like to be outside. I like talking to people. I always want to be social, so I think this job works really well for me. I really like eating. I like dogs. Those are my favorite animals. I want to go into videography and media when I'm older. I'm looking into the Capilano Film School in Vancouver. I was looking into that. So that's basically all there is for me. I'm
sorry,
not as impressive as her, unfortunately, but yeah.
You know, when I listen to both of you speak, I'm always convinced when I talk to students. I'll talk a little bit later on at the meeting. I was at the high school graduation, and I was at an elementary school, and I'm sure that I know that our future's in good hands. So congratulations, and thanks for taking the work. And as you stand up and turn around, I want you to wave to the camera, because you're live on camera, so you can tell people who you are. So give them a wave when you stand up and turn around. Thank you. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Members of council, any more questions? No? Great. Okay. Okay, members of council, we have one delegation tonight. We don't have quantity, but we've got quality. Affordable Housing Vancouver Island Society is going to talk to us about an affordable housing initiative. And we have Mr. Daniel Dugan. I gather you don't have a partner tonight. I hear Mr. Hessling, but he's not here. Okay. So, Mr. Dugan, you're on your own, and you've got 10 minutes, sir. Make yourself at home.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing me to be here to speak to you. My name is Daniel Duggan. I have been in this community for 35 years now, and I've been in the building industry, development, construction, project management. The last project I did was just up the street here at Corfield Creekside, a 60-unit townhome development that we finished just over a year ago. Since then, I have had other project interests. Recently in Victoria, we're building a 31-unit apartment condo complex for co-housing development in the middle of Fernwood. And otherwise, I'm semi-retired. I work harder than ever for less or no pay. ABBA's Affordable Housing Vancouver Island was created a few years back to facilitate the creation of sustainable entry-level housing for single individuals, for service and industry workers, and for students, young working families, and seniors. The Office Board of Directors is made up of individuals with backgrounds in finance, marketing, teaching, and real estate. Office has a great pro team of seasoned developers, planners, and we're strong in architectural design, project management, human resources, and administration. Our mission here today is to introduce you to our concepts and ideas that will provide practical, sustainable solutions for the current dilemma, the dilemma being crisis in housing, crisis in affordable housing, entry-level housing. We find ourselves in today regarding entry-level homes. It's young people who are being displaced. Many, many families who would like to move into the area can't because there's no place to live, essentially. They can't afford to get into the market. So creating affordable housing is not a whimsical luxury, it's an imperative. We'll launch into this. The three tenets or the pillars of AVAS are affordability, sustainability, and security. At the end of this presentation, I'd like to introduce you to this personally by delivering it to you as a PDF document for perhaps a few future questions and so on. I've asked Deidre if she could do that, and so I'll ask you if you'd be willing to receive this information. It's interesting that I've been here tonight for a rezoning application because really we're all about urban densification. To create affordability, to really create entry-level marketing again, we need to densify. We need to create community land trust and ways and means to bring families, young families, into our communities. We need to create socialized community housing. In other words, speaking to what this young lady spoke to a moment ago, having people really communicate with each other in their developments, working together to make their homes safe, comfortable, and viable, sustainable. We'd like to think that reduced red tape would help that along, and I know Blaine would maybe embrace this to a little bit of a lesser degree, but I know that it's something that is front and center on every developer's. Sustainability, we're interested in introducing some viable new building technologies, be it structurally insulated panels, wood and hemp fiber blocks and panels. We see these new technologies coming on stream pretty quickly. Pilot projects that we're aware of are happening on the South Island as we speak. Green energy, I mean, we all know what's happening with energy costs. They're going through the roof and will continue to do so. Solar electric and solar hot water are a part of our program. I made many attempts years ago to introduce solar hot water to our Corefield project and put infrastructure in place for that to happen. Unfortunately, there was a reluctance on behalf of the residents to embrace it. I think they'll think twice about it again coming up in the future. Water conservation, well, we all know what water conservation has done to our plants in the community. We're now seeing green bags wrapped around pretty much everything on our streets. Water has been a real issue here, an issue that we've had front and center for the last 7 to 10 years. And maybe now we're going to see some resolve to it with the new dam project and everything. So. Food security. Living on cruise ship Vancouver Island is interesting. You know, we grow less than 20% of the food that we consume here. If anything was to happen in California, Mexico, Chile, or other jurisdictions we bring our food in from, we'd be in serious trouble. It's a simple given. You know, we need to really focus on growing more food to keep our communities sustainable and healthy. Security is a big part of life for everybody. and we believe that that can happen through a cooperative governance model, a mix of affordable and market entry units in highly desirable urban settings. And with that, we see that as part of our initiative and hope that others will as well. Professional property management is a given. Low interest rates loans are also a given. Top-down investment, cities, towns, municipalities, pension funds, credit unions, corporations, and other private citizens could and would be able to invest in some of these community land trusts or land banks that we're talking about. We've identified a piece of property here in Parksville that we'd like to introduce you to. You know it, of course, because it's right across the street from you here. We'd like to think that this piece of property could be made available to us or another nonprofit developer for the purpose of building a densified, sustainable community. I'm going to show you. This is a section of the building. You see the streets identified. We're talking way over height, as Lane would have it today. But we believe that this kind of densification is really necessary in central urban settings. This building is equipped with solar electric. We've got greenhouse rooftop gardens, many features, including gray water catchment systems, rainwater catchment systems. These are all built into what we consider to be sustainable in the future. This is really, these are plans that really deserve a little more attention. And me speaking to them here now is challenging. Typically, we're talking, these are, most of the units in this building are of a size that would allow young people to get into the market, whereas they're not able to get into the market today. These are units that are anywhere from 300 square feet up to 1,200 square feet. We're seeing a lot of this happening all over the island. Victoria is big time embracing this. There are developments now that have...
Excuse me, Councillor Powell has a question for you at this point in time.
Thank you, Worship. So I would need to clarify, is this a presentation on affordable housing initiative, or is this a proposal for development on Jensen?
Well, it's...
And if it's a proposal, it should be going through planning, not to council.
I beg your pardon?
If it's a proposal, it needs to go through planning, not through council.
Well, this is more a dreamscape, our dreamscape for a piece of property that exists adjacent to your building here.
Well, when I hear you speaking about it, you've already got the proposal together. And to me, it seems like you're trying to have the cart before the horse.
I understand that, and I agree with you to some...
Let me finish, please. It is a proposal for a development on Jensen, incorporating your goals that you initiated at the beginning. And so my question is, should it be coming to council or should it be going to planning?
I think that this is I think this is a situation where we're being made aware of. I think what I'm more interested in is the initiative, the financial initiative, and how this might be going about. You realize, Councillor Powell, that this council doesn't give away, doesn't sole source anything. We would go for a request for proposal at some point in time if concepts like this were to becoming
what I'm requesting
appealing to council.
Excuse me. What I'm requesting, Councillor Powell, is that the city, the council, you, consider donating this property that you have adjacent to us here to a nonprofit developer like us. This dreamscape that I'm painting out here is specific to this property. And it really is in as much a dreamscape at this point because it goes way beyond what Blaine would consider something doable, given zoning in this particular area at this time. But I think we all know that that to make things affordable, to make real estate available to young people today, we have to look at reducing size of units to start with, and then being creative. I mean, helping young people in some cases with down payments, creating long-term affordability through community land trust and land banks. That means that the land would be held in perpetuity for affordability, for the sake of families that we want to have live in our communities. We have a considerable amount of greenhouse space on the roof area of these properties. We're considering here as a part of this that we'd have a market garden, a market, farmer's market built into the complex. These are all descriptive of the floor plans that we've created for this building. A total of 78 living units in the first phase and 8 commercial. 8 commercial would be, in our dreamscape, made available for young entrepreneurial business people. Just recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had a meeting with a counselor in Qualicum Beach. We were talking about affordable housing, and there's a gaming company there. They have a small complement of employees at this point, roughly 10. They want to bring in another 50. There's no place for any of them to live. Only one of their group can currently find a residence in town, Qualicum Beach, now. Qualicum is facing the same scenario. I know Tunis is very much agreeable to affordable housing, but with zoning and things being what they are, it's challenging to look at changing that the village appearance to incorporate some of the higher density structures that we're proposing.
So can I clarify, when you talk about affordable housing, are you talking about attainable housing? Are you talking about employee housing? Are you talking about housing for people who are homeless?
I'm talking about housing for service workers. I'm talking about housing for students. I'm talking about housing for seniors. I'm talking about housing for young families. If you look at these floor plans, we've got units down as small as 365 square feet. These units will allow a lot of young people to come into the market for the first time. This is a part of the market that we've eroded out completely over the last few years. We've seen real estate prices increase dramatically, upwards of 35% or more in the Central Island area, higher in Victoria. We no longer have a bottom end in the market, and the bubble is forming. Really, it's just a matter of time. So for us, this is what we see this as a way to bring young people into a market that they will not, otherwise really not ever have an opportunity to be involved in. So. In closing our vision, we propose to partner with the City of Parksville, BC Housing, CMHC to build a model community on city-owned land. Phase 1 will include 78 units, 8 commercial spaces, 95 parking spaces. Phase 2, a 4-story structure with underground parking and a garden roof. Ground floor community facilities with a daycare for children and wellness clinic, juice bar, coffee shop, and so on, with a vegetable market. 4 2-level townhomes on Lee Road and 27 micro living units on the remaining 3 middle floors, 40 parking stalls. Our purpose and go-forward wish would be for council to put forward a request for proposal to other nonprofit developers in the community for its Jensen and Lee Avenue properties.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to members of the council, I have a burning question. It's had to do with a top-down investment. Could you explain that? I think the financial aspect of it is quite interesting.
Well, today, you know, we use banks and credit unions to finance projects, typically speaking. That isn't how it happens in other places in the world. And if we took Holland as an example, my partner who was going to be here with me tonight, John Husselman, is from Holland. He's been here for 3 years. Many of the community housing developments in Holland are financed by corporations, businesses, and private individuals. The top-down model relates to them investing money in housing and receiving a decent interest rate for the money that they invest. It's long-term money, but it's money well invested, and it's socialized money. It brings money into areas in our community that are desperately needed.
Members of council, questions for Mr. Dugan? Councillor Burton.
Thanks, Dan, for your presentation. I find it incredibly interesting, the housing crisis that we have, not just in our community, but in most British Columbia communities with regard to availability. I got an email today. I want to just give you an example that we have a gerontology program that is slated to come to Parksville through Vancouver Island University in January of 2018. But in order to make it possible, we need to be able to find housing for 24 to 26 students who are projected to enroll in that program. And it's something that has been going on for some time in terms of listening to the business community having difficulty hiring staff because there's a lack of affordable housing, attainable housing in our community. I hear from businesses that are thinking of relocating here, and again, the same issue comes up, where are people going to live? And the many conversations I've had with Vancouver Island University about creating having a larger impact in our community through more courses being offered. And again, it comes down to a lack of housing quite often. If we were to be able to find a way to go forward, what kind of time frame are we looking at in order there's a process that has to happen before anything begins. What's your proposed building schedule as far as the time frame?
Well, just with this particular building, part of the reason we looked at doing it this way, I knew that right off the bat that it wasn't within current zoning. But we wanted to look at creating a mix of market housing and affordable housing. So the top 3 floors on the north side of this project would be market housing. Housing that would sell for a premium because it would all be Waterview properties. And we feel that this property would help pay for the lower floors and the balance of the development. So some of the features that we built into this, be it like solar electric or water collection systems, money has to come from somewhere. Some of that somewhere can come from some of the foundations that we've identified. CMHC has some innovation funds that they've identified as well. So there are ways to do this. You know, I don't know, I mean, for myself as well, I come from a place of building houses for profit. And but at the same time, I realized that, you know, a lot of the young people I had working for me, they can't live here. They have to live out in Arrington, Coombs, Whiskey Creek, and in some cases, they lived as far away as Port Alberni and Cumberland. I think people commuting, I mean, on a daily basis from those areas coming down here. So So the kinds of suites that we're talking about here, these micro suites, which I might add, there's a project in Victoria called the Wade that sold out in advance. And this were similar size units. The biggest unit, I think, was 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, sold for $800,000. The smaller units, around 360 or so, they were selling for $265. As of 2 weeks ago, they were 85% sold out. So I think that, given a timeline, Kim, in terms of the partnerships that we've brokered here, this could happen very quickly. Maybe even before Mark decides to pull the pin. And I've identified a place at the top floor there, Mark, that you can move into when you leave.
And that'll be in, 2030. Councillor Powell has a question.
I have a couple of questions. So is there going to be any rentals? You talk about student housing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and what proportion would be rentals?
Totally. With BC Housing involved, we're looking at a couple or maybe perhaps the majority of floors, depending on to what degree they're willing to participate.
And is the assumption that the city of Parksville will donate that land, or you going to buy that land?
I beg your pardon?
Is it an assumption that the city of Parksville will donate that land for this proposal, or are you going to purchase that property?
Ideally speaking, yes.
But yes, donate?
To donate the land. But there are other models here. I mean, the city could look to take a position in a community land trust and remain as an owner over the course of time. But what we're looking to do is to designate that land or lands like it within our community for affordable housing.
And so part of what I would like to say is thank you very much for your presentation.
My pleasure.
Ethically and morally, I disagree with it. I think that it's not our job as a council to subsidize businesses, and that's part of what we would be doing, because people who earn minimum wage can't afford to live here. And so I come from a place of it should be $15 an hour minimum to start with, and it should increase. And so my issue is, so you want the city of Parksville to donate a piece of property to build what you called affordable housing, which I can strongly disagree with. The top 3 floors will be premium, so I'm supposing that they will be top of the line cost, and that this will help pay for the lower floors. That to me is not affordable housing.
Typically speaking, BC Housing does not like to invest in a project where there's a mix of market and affordable housing, typically. Now, in this particular case, we have the 3 top floors of this building would have water view. Now, for all intended purposes, it could all be affordable if BC Housing is willing to put the majority of the money up to make this happen. But, what's happening right now in Vancouver is just this sort of thing. And when you look at having a mix of market and affordable housing in the same place, the buildings have a character, a sustainable, maintainable character to them that so-called affordable housing developments do not. In other words, the bigger money investors on those top floors are going to want to make sure that the building is kept in tip-top shape and everything is going to be taken care of. Anyway, the other part of it is that what we see is an important step in the process to have young people come into the market. Ownership is really the key to it, from my perspective. Rental housing is absolutely imperative. It's important. But it's ownership that really underscores the market. It really creates the real estate market that we enjoy today. Unfortunately, it's all changed. Young people today, even 2 working people making $80,000 a year, can't afford to get into the market.
Follow-up, Councillor Powell.
And so, you could do a similar thing with the Habitat for Humanity. They're building homes, and there's an investment by the people that are going to eventually own the homes because they helped to build it. The thing that I'm getting at is I've just had a daughter and son-in-law who purchased a home. and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's impossible. I just don't think this is the right way to go about it. I think this is subsidizing. The taxpayer will lose on the sale of that property if we decide to sell it. They will lose because we're subsidizing the business community by providing attainable housing for people that they're paying minimum wage to. And so I see this as twofold, and ethically I disagree with it.
I was one of the first members of the Habitat for Humanity affiliate in Nanaimo, part of the driving group. I know all about what Habitat is about. Habitat's a great company, a great organization, and I respect and appreciate all of what they've done. They have, over the last few years, perhaps 20 years now, changed their program a little bit. Now, when you get a Habitat house, when you qualify for a Habitat home, they have buyback clauses built into it. They don't want to have you turn it into another commodity. They're not willing to be in that market. Part of what we're talking about here is decommoditizing housing. It's about creating, and the only way for us to look at creating affordable housing here in Parksville is to look to landowners like yourself to participate. Not necessarily at the end of the day to donate the land, but perhaps to partner with an organization like us to do this. What that partnership could look like, there's 15 different ways we could look at slicing and dicing this up. We've got some very specialized legal counsel in Vancouver that we've been communicating with that would definitely love to look at helping us make a presentation on that front. So,
Mr. Dugan, at this point in time, I have a question that I have to ask. If the city were to donate the land, what's in it for the city for future taxation revenue? What's in it for the city in terms of future taxation revenue by donating the land?
What's in it for the city?
In other words, can the city generate future taxation revenue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you would on any piece of property that exists in the city. So the dollars continue to come from that source and direction.
Any other questions for members of council for Mr. Dugan? Councillor Beale.
I'd just like to thank you for the presentation. When I saw that you were making a delegation, I was interested, but I really didn't know what to expect. So, thank you very much. And I just want to add a couple of points. This past winter, I did spend some time at the homeless shelter, and it was quite. There was pause to reflect when one of the residents, if you like, one of the people there was a skilled tradesman, and there was certainly work in the area, but there was no place that he could find other than there could be houses, but he wasn't really in a position that he wanted to share a house with a bunch of other people that he really didn't know, and there was nothing that was available for him. So that was one, and that's certainly not a minimum wage job either, although I absolutely do agree with Councillor Powell that a poverty reduction plan would also assist people in getting into things. The other thing is just earlier today I was at a meeting and learned that almost daily the number of people who are losing housing in this area is increasing, and that we have now families and seniors who are tenting in campgrounds. So it absolutely is one of the critical issues of the day is housing and how do we get there. So thank you for bringing yet another idea forth.
This has been a great learning experience for me. I have been interested in co-housing for probably the last 10 years or more. I see it as a great model for us as a culture, as society, because it is a socialized group. We, as a culture today, don't talk to each other. We don't communicate, and we don't know how to communicate in many cases. With the developments that I've been involved in, the stratas, of course, exist there, and there are maintenance committees, there are committee to do a lot of different things, but it relates to, more the practicalities of it rather than things. As an example, in the co-housing development that I was working on in Victoria, we had, it was a bicycle community. We had a facility there for 64 bicycles, 31-unit condo development with 12 dedicated parking spaces. The Victoria City Council let fly to make it so that we could look at providing homes more affordably. We avoided, $1.5 million in underground parking cost as a result of that. So
any further questions from members of council for Mr. Dugan? Well, thanks very much. You've given us a great deal of things to think about, and we're all aware of the housing problem. It's no doubt a problem and a big challenge up and coming. It's not going away.
I really would welcome input from you. So if you would be willing to take a copy of this presentation in a PDF format, I've hyperlinked parts of it and we'll do so more. I want your feedback. I mean, this is, it's only been a short period of time since I've been involved in affordable housing. I'm just blown away by what I'm seeing out there. I mean, I'm seeing young people who want to move into our community, who are needed in our community to really help support the aging, folks that we've got living here. That includes me. And
please send all members of council a copy of your presentation.
I'll do that. Actually, Deidre and I spoke, and I'm going to send Deidre a copy of the PDF of this, and I'm going to hyperlink a few other parts to this so you can look at some of the things that we were talking about here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members of council, we have our first report from Mrs. Kaler, and I need a mover and a seconder for the two recommendations. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Burden. Mrs. Kaler, would you please give us the background on the appointment of a bylaw enforcement officer in accordance with 264 of the Community Charter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The appointment by council of a bylaw officer gives the officer the authority to enforce all of the city's bylaws. Without this appointment, we could face a situation where the courts would be forced to dismiss a matter requiring the testimony of this position due to the lack of legislative authority. At this time, we're asking for council to support the appointment of Bruce Nicholson as a bylaw enforcement officer in accordance with the Community Charter. Officer Nicholson comes to us with many years of public sector law enforcement experience and has most recently spent over 12 years in the Oceanside area enforcing public laws with the RCMP Oceanside Detachment. Recommendations are per the agenda.
Any questions for Mrs. Keeler? Pretty straightforward. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. All right. Mrs. Comas, would you please give us the background on the issue regarding the 2016 annual municipal report? I need a mover and a seconder. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mrs. Comas, the background, please, on the 2016 annual municipal report.
Yes, Your Worship. As required by the Community Charter, local governments are required to prepare an annual report outlining the city's progress on financial and operational goals and objectives before June 15th in each year. The current report for 2016 is available on the city's website and has been advertised in local newspapers. And the recommendation is the report be received.
I just want to make a comment. I just want to thank the staff for putting together a comprehensive report. When you look at everything in a list of the things that you do, it causes you to reflect, and there is an awful lot of that our staff have done, and we have a council have done over the last year, and seeing it in a document like this is just a reminder. So I think it would be remiss to not pass on compliments to the staff for putting together a good report, and let's hope that we can continue to do that in the years in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Very worthwhile comments. Should have been made by the mayor, but they weren't, so thank you for that. Okay, we're moving on, Council. We're now at the new business item on the agenda, and if you'll permit me once again, because it's summertime, there are an awful lot of things going on in Parksville, so I'll move forward before going around the table to the rest of the members of Council. I wanted Council to know that the TV series Chesapeake Shores, the TV production company, has moved into the community park for the remainder of this week and will wrap up filming Friday evening. We know this is an inconvenience and we will have an impact on the park users. However, we do appreciate the public's patience as we accommodate this request. And we're excited to have this season finale filmed in the community park. And I believe there's revenue for that activity also, so we'll be happy with that. We're having coffee with Council this Thursday, tomorrow, from 2 to 4 p.m. here at City Hall. The Parksville Fire Department on Saturday, July the 22nd, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. will be turning 75 years old. The department will host a show and shine open house from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the fire hall and in the parking area between the fire station and City Hall, where classic and current firefighting equipment from communities on the island will be on display. Sounds like an exciting day. And then also for the community park, the Quality Foods Canadian Open Sand Sculpting Competition. It kicks off on July the 14th, which is next Friday, I believe, if I'm correct. The competition is open to the public over the July 14th weekend, with winners announced on July 16th. That's Sunday, late Sunday afternoon around 5 o'clock. Beach festival activities run until August the 20th, with concerts in the park, as well as art in the park towards the end of July. Please refer to the parksvillebeachfest.ca website for more information. And your beloved mayor has a few announcements that he'd like to make. First of all, Canada Day. For anybody that was in Parksville, the thousands and thousands of people, I'm looking at Councillor Burden, who in another role has a lot to do with that, and it was a great big success. And everybody, most of us on council, at least most of us here tonight, all participated in one way or the other, and I'm thankful for that. The parade was a nice, long, exciting parade. Earlier, at the end of June, we celebrated Reconciliation Day with our First Nations neighbors in this room, and that was a very thoughtful and a very successful day, a successful morning. We listened to the elders speak, and they spoke very wisely and very truthfully and to the point. And it never ceases to amaze me the kinds of things we have to learn about our First Nations neighbors and their role that they've played in the evolution of this country, which I've called an Aboriginal country. I want to also acknowledge on behalf of the city and council the loss of a well-known businessman, Mr. Tom Harris. Mr. Harris is a big contributor to charitable organizations, to put it bluntly. The last time I had discussions with him was at the United Way kickoff last year. Very big supporter, and he will be sorely missed, not only by members of this community, but by members throughout Oceanside, including the city of Nanaimo and the District 68, which is south of Nanaimo. So it's a big loss for the community, and we want to extend to Mr. Harris's family our sincerest sympathies. And lastly, I was involved a little bit with the school board over the last 7 or 8 days. The first item, I attended the graduation of the Bolinas High School students last week, and I was extremely impressed. And I said earlier this evening when I talked to our ambassadors that we're in good hands. And I can assure you, listening to the ambition and the further studies that these students want to make to contribute to our country and to our society is awesome. And I don't know if you all saw in the local paper, but there was one of the graduates won a $100,000 scholarship, for which I believe is towards an engineering degree. And that's just awesome. And there were a lot of other scholarships announced at this graduation ceremony. Too many to list tonight, but I was very, very impressed. And the more I see of these activities, the more I'm convinced that our future's in good hands, not only in this part of the world, but in the rest of Canada. And lastly, on a more, I'll use the word difficult note, I went to the Springwood Elementary School to thank the students for the cleanup that they had performed on our beach on National Cleanup Day. This is all grades were involved, and I went around to the different classes, and the principal did a really amazing thing. He assigned me 4 students, 4 grade 7 students, who were extremely articulate and extremely knowledgeable about what was going on in their school and what was going on in their community. And I won't get into too specifics, but I came away from that meeting, which lasted about 2.5 hours, on a couple of notes that amazed me, that elementary school students are fully aware of the social issues that we face in our community, such as affordable housing and such as poverty. And in one instance, the poverty example was given to me by someone who was not much older than my grandson. And I came away from that meeting thinking back to my time when I was in elementary school and when I was in grade 7, and how that has changed. And I know that Councillor Beale, being a former teacher and a former principal, probably more fully aware than I've ever been. I frankly was shocked and I was disturbed by the fact that I had elementary school students talking to me about poverty and talking to me about affordable housing or attainable rental housing. And coming out of the mouth of these young people, it's something that's determined myself to do whatever I can to work on those issues. And my commission tonight to everybody who's listening is that the school boards provide breakfast and lunch to an awful lot of these students that can't afford it. And in the summertime, I'm told that it's the food banks that tend to take up the slack. So if you're looking for something to do with any excess money you have to throw around, I would certainly support the food banks. And I know that it's something that I'm going to keep myself interested in. But I have to tell you, as mayor of this beautiful city and of all of the wonderful things that we have, I'm still affected by it. And it has caused me a great deal of concern and a great deal of thought to what we can do to make this a better place than it is now, because it certainly needs. So on that note, I'm going to go around the table for members of council. I'm going to start on my left with Councillor Oates for new business and any updates you have to make.
Really didn't have a lot of new business, Your Worship, but I'm going to comment on your comments, and I'll tell you, the city of Parksville is lucky to have you sitting in that chair. Your compassion and your empathy for your fellow man is beyond compare. I agree with everything you said there tonight. I believe the youth ambassadors are, if we can keep those young people in our town, our future is in great shape. The articulate enthusiasm that those 2 particular young people showed tonight is cause for much optimism going forward. June 21st, the declaration of the Aboriginal Day here in the Forum was a very special day. I believe that the symbolism of that event was significant. There was, in my mind, some thought given by their delegation prior to coming to that meeting, and I say that based on the presentation that was given to you, Your Worship, when the former chief gave you the feather, and they gave the explanation that the feather was to help you to not only talk with your head but to also talk with your heart, and to always be coming from a good place. I was truly touched that day. It was a very special day for me. It was significant that on National Aboriginal Day, with so many events that required those folks' attention in Nanaimo, that they chose to come and be in the forum here with us. And there was quite a few people here too. The place was pretty busy. So I really am looking forward to making some significant strides towards reconciliation and the people that really built this country. And lastly, on our colonial celebration of Canada Day, kudos to the Chamber of Commerce. They did a fantastic job. Walking down in the park, I went down around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you couldn't help but smile when you see the kids and the people and the festival-like atmosphere there. And honestly, I got to tell you, I thought, uh-oh, the phone's going to ring. People are going to be complaining about this, but never heard a word. So that was a great event. I really liked to see the number of young people that come out on that day. Again, going back to my earlier comments about the mayor, the morning started at like 6:45 at Parksville Chrysler. We all gather with our golf carts and survey the route and that. And it was at that time that the mayor became aware that there was some garbage issues overflowing up on Craig Street. So it was quite interesting in the golf cart as we're driving through downtown. And I'm the mayor. I want this garbage cleaned up. And he finally ended up getting Todd from the operations department, who hopped right to it and got it. So kudos to Todd for getting that done. And it was a fantastic day.
Don't tell Mrs. Comas I was wrong.
Yeah. But it was a wonderful day. Canada Day is a good event for our community. The number of people that come there, the smiling faces, it truly is a wonderful event. And later that night, when I got home, I could tell that the community embraced the event by the number of pictures and that were posted on social media. And there was one very interesting picture that I happened to see on social media, Your Worship. While you were sweating your behind off down here in Parksville organizing the parade, apparently the mayor of Qualicum was being vetted around town in an antique car. So I'm not sure if we got it right or if we got it wrong, but in any event, it's just noteworthy the difference in the two communities.
So I would like to talk about Canada Day. I think I'm going to mention the people or the organizations that were involved in just my little piece of Canada Day. I started off by picking up Joan Lemoyne, and we went to the Lions Club breakfast because she never misses it. Then we headed up to the parade, and I saw numerous councillors and a mayor there directing traffic, sweating. It was, it's amazing the number of things that go on in the background, and they pull it off. Everybody is there to help. They're getting it all. I needed water because we didn't have any, and I just mentioned it to somebody, and I got water. It was amazing. We did the parade, and which one is it? Chrysler. Parksville Chrysler donated a beautiful Jeep, brand new white Jeep. Joan and I needed ladders to get into it, but once we were in it, it was great. So I drove her in the parade, and we went from there to the Legion celebration, and they had their 150th cake. I had a burger. It's a different group of people at that Legion, and you can see their sense of community when you go in there, and everybody knows everybody. Joan talked me into sticking around for the meat draw. I won $25 gift certificate, so all was good, and then I ended my day. But I would really like to say that Canada Day was really, really special, and we do a good job, and I would, as much as, got to keep doing it, but at the same time, we need more volunteers.
Thank you. I will actually add a little bit about Canada Day. It truly was a special day, and certainly one that I will remember as, the mayor, our beloved mayor, talked me into being one of the judges for the floats and everything. So it was great fun to go around, but what a challenging position to be in, because there were so many entries that that demonstrated creativity and a great sense of community and wanting to celebrate Canadiana. It was really hard, especially in some of the categories that had many entries. And yes, it was a good lengthy parade. There were more than 53 entries, so it was pretty involved. And after following that, actually it was kind of funny because I'll just share this, that we try to get out the ribbons before everyone gets to the end so that you can find them and deliver them. And I had 3 that were still to be delivered. 2 of you out there will get them very soon. But so the parade had started, so I raced home and hopped on my bike and went uptown and cycled fast and furiously and got into the parade and caught up with at least one individual to present the ribbon, and then spent most of the rest of the day down in the park, which was fantastic. And what a great show of diversity as well. There were really many people from obviously many walks of life and many backgrounds, and everyone seemed to be having a really good time. And when I told my son this, the level of involvement by our council in the parade, he's in Victoria, but he was truly amazed and impressed at how easy it is to be a volunteer and to get involved in the community. So thank you. Beyond that, I really don't have much in the way of new business. I have been attending meetings of the various groups that I'm associated with. I would like to report that with the Homelessness Task Force that, as everyone knows, the shelter has closed for the year, but the stats are such that over the course of the time it was open, there were a little bit over 100 unique individuals. So these are more than 100 different people who were accessing the shelter this past year, this past season, and it was at an average of 113% capacity and sometimes more than that. It was really certainly heavily used, and already we need to be looking forward to trying to find a suitable location for the coming year, and especially for the extreme weather shelter. So that's certainly an ongoing need, and I think, as our mayor has indicated, poverty is a real issue for a number of our residents in our community, and we need to pull together to help work towards solutions.
Thank you. Just before I go to Councillor Burden, I omitted to give a special thanks to the ham radio operators. Without them, we would be almost incommunicado in the parade, given all of the noise and given all of the traffic and all of the people. The ham radio operators really keep us connected. We were able to talk. Luckily this year we didn't have any incidents, but if we were to have an incident, we were in communication with the police immediately, and therefore the ambulances if that was required. So special kudos to them, and I'll be looking after that. Something that I almost failed to do, but I'll be looking after that tomorrow morning. Councillor Burden, who had a busy last week getting organized, being the main hub of what was going on. So over to you, sir.
I had a wonderful time on Canada Day. I'm hoping actually to be able to watch the parade next year. We'll see how that goes. Just a quick note back to the festivities and meetings on June the 21st. We need to do more of that with our First Nations neighbors. Nice for me, I ran into some people that I haven't seen in a long time. I used to work in the First Nations community, do a lot of work at Southern Laleham through my affiliation with the federal parole system. It was a very touching moment for me. And then couple that with the presentation that we had in this facility a couple of weeks previous from a fellow with the Aboriginal Business Match, who talked a little bit about that reconciliation, and that what reconciliation meant for him was that his daughter would have all of the opportunities available to everybody else. And I thought that was the best sort of definition, description of what reconciliation meant that I've heard, and I was really touched by that. In the afternoon of the 21st of June, after the celebration of Aboriginal Day, I went on a wheelabout walkabout with our mobility challenged. It was actually great for me because I didn't have to limp. I got to ride in a chair with a motor. It was kind of cool. But I noticed a number of things, and we had a member of the engineering staff along with us, so I know that these things are being noted. Hydro poles and sidewalks. How does that happen? I know it's not our responsibility, so I'm not casting any aspersions within the city staff. But that just seems to me the most basic thing. Sidewalks are for walking, for people with different types of mobility instruments. Hydro poles really get in the way. And the other one, and you may be surprised to hear me talk about this, is the sandwich boards. I know that my employer sent a letter to the city the last time that the sign bylaw was looked at, and while we didn't say that we wanted them outlawed, we said that we would certainly like to see some other options available, and I would certainly want to reiterate that next time the sign bylaw comes up for review. They are certainly a number of businesses that are being very flagrant with their disregard for the distance from their business. They obstruct traffic on our sidewalks, and in particular people with mobility challenges. And I think that there are a number of solutions where we can promote our businesses, promote what's going on in our community, without having those things on the sidewalk and littering the various areas around the entrance to the industrial park. And we need to take a look at that. Moving on to Mr. Dugan's presentation, I'm impressed with what he had to say. I know, and you've heard me speak about the need for a variety of housing options in our community. I'd like to see us not lose this presentation over time. So I'd like to add to that very long list of items that were in last council meeting's agenda, and I'd like to ask staff to prepare an RFP to have a variety of proponents come forward with some options for that land that the city owns at Jensen and the Alberni Highway. And I'm absolutely sure I'm out of order because Councillor Powell is leaping.
Can I just ask for some clarification? Didn't we in the past say we weren't interested as a council to put requests for proposals out for that piece of property? Developers?
We did. The mayor had brought the matter up in the past because unless council is actually prepared to move forward, first of all, preparing the RFP is a time-consuming and a lot of work. And so if this is the direction council wants to go in, we need some specific direction on what we're not going to do and how much we're going to delay development, because right now the planning department is swamped with development. So if we're going to put development aside to do this, then we need that specific instruction from council. Secondly, in order to fulfill the RFP, it is costly for developers to put that kind of a proposal together and to come up with drawings and plans for the kind of facility council's talking about. So unless council is specifically willing to participate and actually award an RFP for a development, then it's a very unfair request to the development community, and whether or not we would even get anybody who would want to make that investment without any guarantee of anything going forward would be questionable, and that's the reason we didn't do it before.
Wasn't one of the reasons we didn't do it before was because we didn't want to give that property to a developer? Wasn't that part of it?
Council has never...
And council said, that's not on.
No, council didn't pass a resolution to that effect, but that's always been the gist of the discussion, is that we
So
were
not once did the words developer leave my lips, okay? I'm talking about not-for-profit housing groups. I know that there's probably more than one in our community. I don't want to give the land to a developer, okay? I don't want to...
Or a nonprofit, whichever.
I want to see that land sits there, okay? So maybe the first step is some sort of a decision from council on visioning as to what we see there. It's being wasted right now. I'm absolutely positive that given its pristine condition, the community already thinks it's a park. It's not a park. It's an asset that the city has, and that asset can be used in a number of ways. And I think that we should start to explore how we can use that piece of property to ease the housing crisis that we have in our community, to demonstrate to other builders in our community what can be done. What we saw there with regard to the retention of rainwater, with green roofs, with what Mr. Dugan was talking about with regard to creating sustainability, and I think those are. I don't know if this is the proposal or not. Okay, I'm not sold on anything, but I think it's time that we start exploring what that piece of property can do.
Thank you, Councillor Burden. Just before I turn it over to Councillor Beale, we've had discussions prior to your coming on council about that piece of land, and I think that in fairness tonight we have two councillors missing. And I'd like you to bring that back when we've got a full council.
Happy to bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. And my question was just whether or not, if we're going to be discussing land and different options there, should it be something that we conduct in a closed meeting? But I'm not sure if we need to or not, and I wonder if Mrs. Comas could advise there.
We can decide on that. Mrs. Comas?
Well, Your Worship, the discussion we're having right now is around the delegation. But if council was going to offer that property for sale or entertain, to have the discussions around what council's going to do with that property, then the community charter certainly guides council toward a closed meeting.
Well, I'm sure you whet some appetites tonight, Councillor Burden.
Well, mine's been whetted. Okay. And one more thing, I've got a note on my table that nobody else has touched, so I'm going to touch it. I'd like to make a motion that staff prepare and provide signs for placement on vehicles during parades, identifying council members, City of Parksville riding in the vehicles.
Seconded by Councillor Powell. Fairly straightforward. Councillor Powell.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing that forward, Councillor Burden. I did bring it to council because I was in that Jeep and people didn't know who we were, and it was mostly Joan in that Jeep. And then I drove by and there's guys talking, oh, look at the Jeep. I really want to look at the tires on it. And I think, it should be recognizable as the City of Parksville.
They thought maybe you worked salesperson for Parksville Chrysler. Yeah, Councillor Rowe.
How much are we planning on spending on this? $1.75, I think.
Somewhere there are signs for the City of Parksville. I looked for them before the parade this year, and I couldn't find them. Do you know where they are, Mrs. Comas?
I do not, Your Worship, but if they're not in operations, we have the ability to make the signs in-house. It shouldn't be an issue.
Make them in-house? Okay. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
Motion, actually. I'll just make the motion. I move that staff prepare a report that outlines the effect of the Canadian Revenue Agency changes to the taxation of remuneration of elected officials.
Second.
Okay, and the reason I'm bringing this forward is that in the most recent budget of the federal government, I understand that there's going to be some changes to the taxation. I think that change takes effect January 1st, 2019. I think we should have a look at the effect of that so that when the new council comes on board, they know what they're getting into.
Thank you. I have a seconder, and Councillor Burden, I guess. I think you had your hand up first. I just wanted to point out that on another board that I sit on, which is the RDN board, they're looking at this because right now, for those of you who don't know, we get a 30% CRA discount on our stipend. And I don't mind working for the little money, the little amount of money that we get as councillors and as mayor, but I seriously object to earning less money than I'm earning now, and that would be the purpose, to find out what kind of a balance we can take. Because the other thing, and I think maybe Councillor Oates might want to talk to this, there's an awful lot of work involved if we do it, if everybody's got to document what they're doing from mileage and stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Councillor Oates?
I think that's the sort of detail that may come back in the staff report and that, and then we could decide at that point which options do we have. But I think that's the issue of it. There's been a change at the federal level that affects us at the municipal level, and I think that we should, as a council, should have a wholesome discussion about that and any changes that we might wish to make.
Thank you.
So we don't lose the good mayor.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're not getting that feather, by the way.
I just want to thank you, Councillor Oates, for bringing this forward at this time. It seems wise to look ahead, as there may be some budget implications. So thank you. Lots of foresight.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, coming back to that feather will be placed in a special see-through box up here. We hope we're working on that. It's a great piece of art. Okay, on that note, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Anything else under new business before we move on? Okay, seeing none, I am going to need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that, pursuant to Section 91C and E of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items related to labor and land. A mover, Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Beale. All those in favor? We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene